All right, cool. All right. Hey, everybody. Talking to Brian Adams here. He's a commercial real estate investor, fundraiser. He posts lots of content on his LinkedIn profile. By the way, go watch it. I'll post his obviously profile. You should go follow him if you're into commercial real estate and trends and all that stuff. Now, with that being said, I don't want to explain everything what he does. I will introduce you to Brian, and Brian will kind of go briefly over his profile. So Brian, please let us know what do you do and how you got into commercial real estate.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Happy to do it. So I'm a New York guy who married a Nashville girl, and my wife's family has a single family office based here in Nashville that's been involved in commercial real estate private equity for the last 25, 30 plus years. So I came to Nashville, started practicing law, and got into the real estate business through my wife's family and some of the sponsors and GPs we were working with, and connected with my business partner, who's also a New York guy that married a Nashville girl. We started our business 10 years ago, and it's kind of been off to the races since then.
Cool, gotcha. Awesome. Okay. So with that being said, now as we talked before, a little bit before the recording, is that you post a lot of content showing people your research into why the migration pattern, especially after COVID, on where to invest in commercial real estate. So if could you like briefly say your research or talk about a little bit of your research
Sure.
and why where the trend is going towards on the official.
Yeah,
Oh,
and actually, yeah, I posted something about this recently, but I think something to keep in mind, no matter how you're investing, is demographics are destiny. So, especially in commercial real estate, you
right.
need to be tracking and pay attention to population growth, job growth, and wage creation. Because no matter what asset class or food group that you're investing in or focused on,
Mhm.
those demographics will directly impact how well commercial real estate does across the spectrum. And
Right.
that's what really drives value creation. And so for us, really starting 5 or 6 years ago, we started focusing on the millennial generation, right? So these, I barely qualify as one, but I just am at the cusp. It is now roughly 75 million people total. It's
Mhm.
the largest working generational cohort in the history of America. And there was a narrative, and to some extent there still is, although COVID's changing it, where Wall Street and a lot of folks thought that this generation would forever live in Brooklyn and eat avocado toast and wear skinny jeans and never have kids and never get married. And that's just how they were going to live their lives.
Mhm.
But the reality is, because of 2008 and the Great Recession, their family formation phase, which typically happens in the kind of late 20s, early 30s for most generations, it got pushed back significantly because of that economic downturn.
Mm.
But it's occurring. So now that this maturing millennial generation is entering into a phase where they're getting married, having children, pre-COVID, they were making choices about where they wanted to live, work, and play based on quality of life, cost of living, access to single family homes, be it rental or purchase, and access to education opportunities for their children. And when you look at all those factors, secondary markets, especially suburban ones, make a whole lot of sense. And I
Mhm.
think there's this natural inclination to think, I'm never going to want the lifestyle that my parents had. I'm not going to grow up and raise my children the same way that I was. I want a different lifestyle. But the reality is, we all kind of gravitate back towards what we had. And, the next thing you know, these millennials are now driving SUVs. They have 1.5 children. They're living in single family homes in the suburbs. And because of that huge demographic shift of those folks moving to these places, it has a ripple effect across multifamily, office, distribution, retail, industrial, etc. So we were a little bit out in front of it, starting maybe 5, 6 years ago. But COVID certainly has accelerated, and you're seeing it in the headlines: people fleeing San Francisco, people leaving New York. A lot of these coastal markets that have really, really low quality of life and high cost of living are going to be experiencing a painful 3 to 5 years as these budget shortfalls require them to increase taxes and decrease services. So I think you'll continue to see this shift happening over the next 2 or 3 years.
Awesome info. So on that note, so if you are, There's a person I would like you to connect. We talked about is Mo Bina. I think you both are on the same page. He studies different things. You guys should definitely connect. I'll tag him there. I'm hoping you guys will connect. But that's a great information on demographics, because I've heard this from someone else too. Same thing about demographics. Why Japan's demographics changed, that where real estate kind of residential real estate went down. So that might be happening here too. So great info. Thank you, Adam. So again, I'll post his info up. Please do connect to him, get more info from him. Now, with that being said, the last question is, so what's one thing you do, or one thing you would advise anybody to keep their, either mindset or finances, whatever, to improve? What's one thing you would recommend anybody do, or one thing you do to keep yourself growing constantly in the business or personal wise?
Yeah. And I think it's cliche to say you should have a growth mindset. You should always be challenging yourself. It's easy to say, but it's very hard to execute in practice. And COVID, I think, has been a great learning lesson for all of us about how we need to shift, right? I mean, pre-COVID, I never did webinars. I didn't do these type of things. I wasn't very active on LinkedIn. And I've really had to change my mindset about how to expand my reach, build my content. And so part of that is, I think, fundamentally, if you surround yourself with people who are tier one producers in whatever field they're active in, you can learn a lot about how they spend their time and energy. And I think even more important than what they do, it's not making the mistakes that they've already made, right? So avoiding stepping into that same pothole that they did 10 years ago is more valuable than somebody telling you what you should do, right? So for me, I had this huge benefit of having a father-in-law who, level one trauma surgeon, took a company public in the 90s,
Oh, okay.
has been involved in private equity for the last 25, 35 years. And I have the benefit of being able to go over and have a glass of wine with him and just kind of say, like, what are the 3 big mistakes you made? Or I'm looking at this opportunity, or I'm thinking about doing this with the business. Have you thought about that before? And has it worked out? Or what do you think you wish you could do differently if you could go back in time? And I think that would be, if you can find 3 or 4 folks like that with that profile, you'll see massive improvements in your productivity and efficiency and how you spend your time.
Awesome. That's a great advice, because that follows Napoleon Hill's mastermind principle. I'm guessing you might have read it.
Yeah.
But yeah, great advice, Adam. And again, thanks for taking the time to talk to me and sharing your information. And again, I'll post Brian's info about the link or about the video. And please reach out to him. He has great info about demographics and how everything is working. So maybe you can learn from him, or maybe you do business with him. So thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Stopped it.